Sometimes when the world's not on your side, you don't know where to run to, you don't know where to hide. You gaze at the stars in the sky, at the mountain so high, through the tears in your eyes, looking for a reason to replace what is gone. Just remember that you are never alone.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of Don't Be Sad, Smile, Be Happy, and get online, www.muhammadteam.com. We're giving you, Brother Muhammad is giving you rather, ways to achieve happiness, achieve a sustained happiness with you using tools from the Quran and the Sunnah. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Muhammad.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Brother Muhammad, you spoke before the episode about the importance of knowing Allah, and you had mentioned to me that you would like to discuss knowing Allah, His names and attributes, as a way to relieve stress, anxiety, worry, and depression. However, I believe there's some confusion, Brother Muhammad. Some people say, this is, get to know Allah through His names. Then they say, this is not the name of Allah, this is not the name of Allah, there's not 99 names of Allah, you have this wrong, and it creates some confusion. So how can we get to know Him if we don't know what names to call Him by?
Okay, I think what we need to do is we need to clarify some of the most common misconceptions right to begin with, okay?
Okay.
So misconception number one is that Allah has only 99 names.
Okay.
And this misconception comes from a misunderstanding of the Arabic in the hadith, Inna lillahi tis'atan wa tis'een isman.
Okay.
Indeed, Allah has 99 names. Whoever, and the word here is ahsaha, and that means to implement them, to learn them, to understand them, to practice what they entail, like to live them basically.
Right.
Dakhal al-Jannah, will enter paradise. Now, where the confusion comes here is I say Allah has 99 names, whoever learns them will enter paradise.
Okay.
Problem here is that I didn't say Allah has only 99 names.
Right.
Now, Arabic is very specific, and there's a word for that and a word for this.
Okay.
The word inna doesn't mean there's a limit to the number.
Right.
It means of all of the names of Allah, there are 99 that if you learn them, you'll enter paradise.
Yeah.
If I had said innama, or if the Prophet ﷺ had said innama lillah, Allah has nothing but 99.
Right.
Now it's similar to me saying, I've got $20 in my pocket for charity. That doesn't mean the only thing I have in my pocket is $20.
It makes sense that if you explain it like that, but I can also see why people make the mistake.
It becomes confusing. You see, the Arabic is not confusing, but of course, Arabic is a complex language and it has very nuances and things like that. So if I say I've got $20 in my pocket for charity, it doesn't mean that I don't have $100 in my pocket, of which 80 is for me and my
that's a good analogy.
And 20 is for, and the evidence as well for this is that we find the rest of the Sunnah very clearly indicates that Allah has more.
Okay.
And that's much stronger even than that, even though we can pick it out of that one hadith.
Okay.
We actually see, for example, we make a dua saying, oh Allah, we ask you by every name that is yours, that you sent down in your book, or you taught to any of your slaves, or you kept in the unseen with you.
Okay.
Meaning that there are names of Allah
that we don't know.
Of, and this is also mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ's intercession, Ash-Shafa'atul Kubra, that when the Prophet ﷺ will intercede, he will be taught means of praise of Allah that he didn't know before.
Right. Okay.
These are the names of Allah Azza wa Jal that he did not know before.
SubhanAllah.
And so we also, when we add up the total names in the Quran and the Sunnah, we find somewhere between 100 and 120 names mentioned throughout that are one way or the other. In fact, if we were to be a bit more relaxed about what is a name of Allah, we could go up to 130, 140 names. So that's just from taking them from the Quran and Bukhari, Muslim, the authentic hadith. So we see here that there is a misunderstanding in that. People do have a confusion.
And not to get too off topic here, but I believe sometimes someone will say this such and such is the name of Allah, because they changed like the verb to the noun or the noun to the verb. Is that correct to do that?
Okay, I think the first misconception people have in this regard is relating to a weak hadith in Jami' al-Tirmidhi. And this hadith is the same hadith. Indeed, Allah has 99 names. Whoever, and I don't just like say learn them, or whoever implements them, practices them, enumerates them will enter into paradise. Actually, this hadith in Jami' al-Tirmidhi has an added bit to it. And this is only in, as far as I know, Jami' al-Tirmidhi, and it is, they are, and then the names of Allah go. This actually is something we call in the science of hadith idraj. What actually happened is, it's an amalgamation of what the Prophet ﷺ said and what one of the scholars said that got mixed up as being from the Prophet ﷺ. There was a teacher teaching hadith. When he was teaching the hadith, he said, Allah has 99 names, whoever learns them enters paradise. And then he said, in my opinion, meaning in my opinion, they are. However, some of his students failed to pick up on
that part.
I don't think he said it in words, but they failed to pick up on the fact that he had stopped the hadith and was giving his own opinion.
At that
and they amalgamated it and joined it together with the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and narrated it as one hadith, which it isn't. Therefore, there are names within there that are actually not the names of Allah at all. And so that's something to be aware of. Now, on the topic of people being a bit relaxed, this is a long topic because the names of Allah have a science to understanding them. But there are times when people can be a little bit relaxed when it comes to picking things that are attributes of Allah. Because let's remember, there are three things when it comes to Allah in this topic. There are names of Allah, there are attributes of Allah that are more than names and are not names. And then there are things we say about Allah that are true, that are neither attributes nor are they names. So they're not mentioned in the Quran, nor are they mentioned in the Sunnah, but they are by default, they have to be true. Like that Allah exists. Allah never mentions an attribute of His being existence, nor does He mention that He is the one who exists or the existent, but it's clear that Allah does exist. And so this goes in the third category of things we say about Allah that are true without them being names nor attributes. So you get mistakes in people putting attributes into names. And you get mistakes with people putting things that we say about Allah that are true as names. An example of attributes as names, a common one that people get wrong is, for example, attributing the name to Allah Al-Muntaqim, that Allah is the one who takes revenge or hands out punishment from those people who against those people who disobey Him. Allah is mentioned in the Quran as being dhuntiqam, as being the one who has an attribute of this sort of taking retribution. That's the word. So Allah is, from the attributes of Allah is that He takes retribution. But there's nowhere in this that this is a name of Allah Azza wa Jal. Again, some people were a bit more relaxed than others. Some of the scholars a little bit more relaxed in this, and they said, oh well, we can make it a name of Allah. It isn't. So that's an example of taking something that's an attribute of Allah and making it into a name when it shouldn't be.
And thank you for clarifying. I know it's a little bit of a long topic and I don't want to get sidetracked. Thank you for clarifying that. However, what if the viewer at home says, look, I'm depressed, I'm stressed, I'm worried, I want to get closer to Allah. I see the brother on TV is telling us to call on Allah by His names and attributes. However, I don't know which names are correct or incorrect. So how can we authenticate or verify that we're calling Allah on one of His authentic names?
I think the interesting thing is that for the majority of people, this isn't a problem. Because in all honesty, the vast majority of names of Allah, something like, I don't know, I'm in the process of actually making a website in this regard, but I think somewhere around maybe between 60 and 70 out of the 99 are agreed upon with no ikhtilaf in them whatsoever.
Oh, wonderful, great.
So you don't have a big problem in that regard, especially with the most common names of Allah, Allah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Malik, Al-Quddus, the ones that are mentioned in the Quran openly in front of you. The number that are actually weak is quite small. Maybe I think I came with a total of 50 names in total out of about 160 odd that people mention across the world, as being names of Allah. I came up with about 50 of them that have no basis whatsoever. So there's not a massive number, not a massive number. On top of that, the ones that are mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah, the disagreement over them is actually very small. So I don't think for most people it's a problem. And I say for most people, we're going to talk about some names in this episode, inshallah, that are names that everybody knows about Allah, but maybe they haven't thought about how it relates to getting over their difficulties.
That's an interesting point. I know throughout the series you've been speaking about knowledge. So in order for this to have a psychological and uplifting and positive, real effect, it's important to use the name of Allah related to what you're asking for, and also have knowledge of what that means. Is that correct?
Definitely. And I think when we go back to the topic of the 99 names, if Allah doesn't have only 99, what is the point of this 99? I liken it to the issue of Laylatul Qadr and praying in the last 10 days of Ramadan. How do you pray Laylatul Qadr? How do you guarantee yourself that you can pray Laylatul Qadr? By praying every single day of the last 10 days, odd and even nights.
Okay.
If you pray the odd nights and the even nights, every single one of them, you guaranteed you prayed Laylatul Qadr. The same sort of idea, the same sort of concept is applied to these names. If you learn as many of the names as you can, you act on as many as you can, you learn them from the Quran, from the Sunnah, you will within them have found the 99
Right.
that will get you paradise.
Yeah, subhanAllah, right.
And so it's there to inspire you to learn those names, and not for you to say, okay, I learned 99, I'm not going to learn 100. No, learn 100, 110, 120. Within those you will find your 99 that will enter you into paradise.
Something of an encouragement, a challenge, an opportunity to learn and to continue to learn.
And I think the key here is that the meaning of ahsaha, it literally means to enumerate them, but it means so much more than that. So it's not about just saying, you know, Hu Allahu alladhi la ilaha illahu, and then saying Al-Malik, Al-Quddus, Al-Salam, Al-Mu'min, Al-Muhaymin, Al-Aziz. It's about learning what those names mean for you in your life.
Okay.
Because they are there to be implemented. They're there to be acted upon. They're there for you to make dua with. They're there for you to call upon Allah with. They're there for you to get near to Allah with. They're there to give you relief from your sadness and depression. You know, subhanAllah, so many people, it just becomes, you know, something you just repeat over and over again. And we talked about this in dhikr. Don't get into the habit of just repeating things without thinking, becoming robotic. Actually, you know, really think about what it is you're saying.
Brother Muhammad, I would imagine and I believe that most of our viewers consider themselves practicing Muslims because they're watching this channel to begin with. So most of those people want to get closer to Allah, they want to draw closer to Allah. And this issue of tawassul is a controversial one, and you find people doing different things, and this is permissible, this isn't permissible. However, we do know from the Sunnah there are clearly defined permissible ways to come closer to Allah. And calling on Allah by His name is one of those permissible, not controversial ways of drawing closer to Allah. Is that right?
Absolutely. And I think the key with tawassul is that if we look in the Quran, in fact, even without the Sunnah, although the Sunnah is no doubt a clarification, if we look at the Quran, we actually see that almost all, if not all, of the permissible forms of tawassul are found in the dua of the Quran.
SubhanAllah. Wonderful.
So you find, for example, the dua of Ibrahim and Ismail when they are building the Kaaba. 3 separate du'as are made, mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, towards the end of the first juz. 3 are made. Each one is concluded with a name and an attribute of Allah. Likewise, you find this repeated throughout the Quran.
SubhanAllah.
That they're calling, إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. You know, and calling upon Allah and getting near to Allah through His names and attributes. So the classic example of this, O Rahman, have mercy on me. O Ghafoor, forgive me. You know, we talked about Ramadan, the end of Ramadan. The dua, Allahumma innaka afuwun kareemun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. This is a perfect example. Oh Allah, you are afu. You love to overlook people's mistakes. And you're kareem, you're generous. You love to overlook people's mistakes, so overlook my mistakes, or forgive me for my mistakes. That's a perfect example of using Allah's names and attributes to get near to Allah, to get your dua answered.
Wonderful. And we're going to take a quick break and we'll continue this topic. You guys stay tuned to Don't Be Sad. We will be right back, inshallah, with Brother Muhammad Tim Humble after this short break.
Sometimes when the world's not on your side, you don't know where to run to, you don't know where to hide.
Imagine that the Anbiya, they were the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they had the hardest lives.
He assumed that he had some kind of superiority and he was a better, more chosen, better person because he had this wealth. And then you look at all the other people who had wealth, and some of them were the worst people. He had Fir'aun and
Qarun.
Reviving your niyyah time and again, that you're doing it sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Most of the youth, they think, oh, I'm going to pray when I'm old, it's okay now, I'll have fun in my life. Later on I'll work, I'll go on my bed, I'll pray 5 times a day. And all these things, they think that that's later on in their life, and they don't know when when they will die.
Amira, who's your role model
Khadija radiallahu anha.
and why?
Because she was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's wife, and she was the first lady to believe in Islam.
Sometimes when the world's not on your side, you don't know where to run to, you don't know where to hide.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Don't Be Sad. We're speaking about calling on Allah by His beautiful names as a means of relieving stress and hardship with Brother Muhammad Tim Humble. Brother Muhammad, thank you for those wonderful points that you shared in the first segment. Really using this as it's a permissible means of tawassul, getting closer to Allah. It's like the icing on the cake of your supplication, I suppose. You had mentioned those beautiful dua in the Quran where the prophets use the names of Allah as a means of getting closer to Him. Now we do hear a further discussion. Some names are rather greater than others, and Allah has, this is His greatest name or that is His greatest name. What are those names, and are they superior to use those names as opposed to others when making dua?
No doubt. The Prophet ﷺ said that indeed Allah has, he mentioned Allah's greatest name. He heard one of the companions making dua, and he said he has called upon Allah by His greatest name. The name by which if he is asked, or through which if he's asked by it, he answers, and if he's made, he gives, and if he's made dua with it, he answers that dua. So this is a major, this is the beginning, I guess, for using the names of Allah. Now, the scholars disagreed over which of the names of Allah are His greatest names. And actually I want to start with really the beginning of the disagreement, which is that does Allah have one greatest name, or is the meaning, as some of the scholars said, that all of these names that I'm going to mention now are all
His greatest
names.
Great point. Go ahead.
And I'm not really going to give an answer to that. I actually believe Allah does have one greatest name, and I suggest that it is the name Allah. But the point is that these names are all clearly names that have a wider meaning than the other names. All of Allah's names are perfect. There's no issue with that. They're all the pinnacle of perfection, as everything about Allah is perfect. But some names have a much wider meaning. They cover much more than some which are very, very limited in the sense of they're absolutely perfect in the limited specific trait that they're talking about. And some of them are very vast. So the first name, and the one that I personally believe to be Allah's greatest name, is the name Allah. And Allah originally comes from the word ilah, al-ilah, which is that Allah is the God, the one who, and in fact every single name of Allah comes back to Allah. And that is why if you wanted one name to say who is Ar-Rahman, He is Allah. Who is Ar-Rahim, He is Allah. Who is Al-Malik Al-Quddus As-Salam, is Allah. Allah is the one that, it's the name that everyone goes back to. And of course it is the name that is mentioned throughout the Quran, and the first one to be mentioned, Bismillah Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So that's clearly, that's a big one, and don't forget to use that. However, as well, we can also mention that if you also want to call upon Allah by His greatest name, you can say, "Oh Allah, I ask you by your greatest name." And that's sort of another way to go around it, to say, "Oh Allah, I ask you by your greatest name," and leaving that knowledge to Allah. But we had the first, which is Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there was a great scholar of the Arabic language called Siboya, and he said that it is a'raful ma'arif. He said there is no name in the world, or no noun in the world, that is more defined than the name Allah. In other words, if I say to you God, and you were a Christian, you would think of God as the Trinity.
Of course.
If I say to a Hindu God, they would think of God as perhaps an idol. If I were to say a Buddhist God, they would think God as perhaps a consciousness or a collective sort of feeling or something like that. Everyone understood the word God in a different way.
In his context.
Whereas when I say Allah, nobody, not even the Christian, not even the Arab-speaking Christian, doubts what I'm talking about. Not even the Arab-speaking Jew would think for a second that I'm talking about something different. When I say Allah, everyone is on the same page.
Yeah.
So it is the most, there is no noun in the world. If I say Muhammad,
Right.
no doubt I can be talking about the Prophet ﷺ, or talking about another person named Muhammad. There are many, many people named Muhammad. But when I say the word Allah, nobody has any doubt about what I'm talking about. So it is the most clearly defined word that exists.
Yeah, good point.
And that's what he said. And I think that's important to put that at the beginning. After that, you have another, perhaps the second most common suggestion for Allah's greatest name, is that it is Al-Hayyul Qayyum. And that is because, again, Al-Hayyul Qayyum, first of all, is mentioned in the surahs that the Prophet ﷺ said Allah's greatest name is there, like Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Taha, and so it's in there. And secondly, because Al-Hayyul Qayyum again encompasses all of the names of Allah. And that's because the names of Allah, if we look at them in a certain way, can be divided into two groups. One group are the names of Allah that relate to Himself, that relate to Him, how He is. And they don't relate to Him bestowing something upon us. They're not actions that sort of are bestowed upon us, or they don't result in actions that affect us, but they relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah's infinite knowledge, that Allah having the most perfect form of life. So all of these come under Al-Hayy. So Al-Hayy encompasses all of the names of Allah that relate to Him and don't relate to us, if you like. Or don't relate to actions that are
like self-descriptive or something, perhaps.
Exactly.
You could say.
Al-Qayyum, which is the one who sustains His creation, is all about the names that result in actions that affect us. So the bestowing of the mercy, the fact that He takes care of us, the bestowing of rizq, the fact that He provides for us, the sort of looking after us, the tarbiyah, the sending down of all these things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does are encompassed in His name, Al-Qayyum. So if you take Al-Hayyul Qayyum, you actually get all of the names of Allah Azza wa Jal, all of the types of Tawheed in there, and you get the sort of comprehensive meaning of all of Allah's names and attributes within Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum. But of course, the word Allah is a single name, and Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum are two names, compound names, so put together. And that's another reason why perhaps the word Allah is Allah's greatest name, and Allah knows best.
On a side note, thank you, brother. On a side note, in the English language, sometimes when I'm back home, I may say to somebody who's not Muslim, may God guide you, or thank God, because I know we're not on the same page. So I say that in a way to maybe draw him closer to me, and maybe he'll want to ask about Islam. Whereas if I say the word Allah, maybe I would scare him. Is this the wrong approach? As Muslims, should we always use the word Allah, even when we're speaking English, or should we use the word God?
There's nothing wrong with using the word God, but we should be aware that God in English, as the word G-O-D in English, is not a name of Allah.
Great point.
Okay, so that's important. There's nothing wrong with using it. It's from, like we say, the akhbar, those things you say about Allah that's true.
Right.
And it's a translation of the word probably Al-Ilah.
Right.
More or less.
Okay.
So Al-Ilah is a name of Allah.
Okay.
But the word God isn't.
Okay.
It's true. Allah is the God, the one true God, the only true God, and Allah is God. And so there's nothing wrong with you saying it. And those people who said that it's forbidden, this is not true, because it's even if we say only from the point of those things that are said about Allah that is true, there's no doubt that Allah is God. So there's nothing wrong with saying it. However, you need to also think about the positives and negatives about using that word.
Yes.
Should I take the time to say Allah, and Allah is the Arabic word for the one true God, and Jews and Christians also use the word Allah, and should I take the time to say that and to explain to them, or should I, sometimes it depends on the circumstances. You're chatting to someone, you've only got a second, you say, may God bless you, and you don't have time, but then maybe you're engaged with someone over a longer period of time, you have time to actually say to them, we use the word Allah because of this reason and this reason and this reason.
Thank you for clarifying that, and indeed I think I will use the name Allah all the time, because as you said, although it's permissible, it is not the name of Allah. So that's a great point. I want to ask you another question now, however. I'm looking for psychological comfort. I feel stressed, I'm worried, I'm not happy. The program's called Don't Be Sad. What if I'm sad now? I want to use these names to relieve my stress, essentially. So just knowing that Allah just is Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, just knowing that I'm calling on somebody with this Allah, with who has these characteristics and these names and attributes, isn't that psychologically soothing in itself? I mean, isn't that a form of relief that I have access to ask this person? This Allah, the Creator?
Absolutely. The fact that you have the ability to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
Directly.
The fact that you do so directly is the greatest element of Islam, because this is the essence of Tawheed, is that you ask Allah directly. And we talked about the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, إِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ. If you're going to ask anyone, ask Allah. So it's very important that you have that access and that soothingness, to think about all the names of Allah. And I want to just look at some, we looked at some of the greatest names of Allah from those names which are mentioned, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. And we said Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim are both names that relate to the rahmah of Allah, the mercy of Allah. However, they relate to it in different ways. Ar-Rahman is the all-encompassing mercy. The fact that Allah's mercy, it encompasses everything and everyone, Muslim, non-Muslim, the animals, the plants, everything is encompassed by Allah's mercy. And Ar-Rahim is the action of bestowing that mercy upon some people and not others. So a kind of a specific mercy or a special mercy. So you remember that Allah is Ar-Rahman, and this reminds you that Allah will never leave you, because you can't ever escape or go out of the mercy of Allah, because it's so vast and all-encompassing. And Ar-Rahim reminds you that Allah has a special kind of mercy that He can bless you with, and that you ask Allah for that special mercy, and for that action of bestowing the mercy upon you. And that just gives you so much relief. Not only that, but to think about the names of Allah that maybe are relating to the help coming. And from these names, some of the names of Allah have multiple meanings. From these is the name of Allah Al-Fattah. And Al-Fattah has two meanings. One is quite a severe and quite related to war and related to victory, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you al-fath. He gives you victory over your enemies. Like we say, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ. Nasrullah, the help of Allah, when the help of Allah comes, and al-fath, the conquest, and that Allah is al-fattah, the one who gives you your conquest and victory over your enemies. But also it has a different meaning, and that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who opens up the ways out of difficulty for you. And notice that the name here is not Fatih, but it's Fattah, and the two are actually different. Fatih means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up the ways, but here Fattah is emphasis that Allah is constantly making ways for you out of difficulty. Likewise, it's not, An-Nasir is not from the names of Allah. This is again another mistake people have. An-Nasir is not from the names, but An-Nasir. And the difference is that An-Nasir is from the names of Allah. And the difference is that An-Nasir indicates that Allah always and is constantly, it's what they call in Arabic Sighat al-Mubalagha, that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is constantly and continually giving you victory over your enemies and making ways out for you. And like when people say, Allah yaftah alayk, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open it up for you. This is the meaning of this word al-Fatah.
Brother Muhammad, thank you so much for that wonderful clarification. However, we are out of time. I really apologize. I wish the show was longer. Would you like to continue this topic in the next episode, or do you want to go to a new topic?
We'll see. I think we have a lot to cover. We may have to go to a new topic. But I just wanted to, if you like, encourage people. And I think it just encourages people to go get a book and to read and to start, because we're not going to be able to cover even a handful, but we gave you some ideas to hopefully the viewers will go and really start to learn, start to read and study about it, and use these names as a means of relief, both in their du'as and indeed just in their remembrance and their consciousness that Allah is there for them and Allah will help them.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brother Muhammad. I certainly appreciate it. You guys at home, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Don't Be Sad. I hope you benefited from it as I know I did. You guys get online, www.muhammadtim.com. And until next time, we leave you in the care of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sometimes when the world's not on your side, you don't know where to run to, you don't know where to hide. You gaze at the stars in the sky, at the mountain so high, through the tears in your eyes, looking for a reason to replace what is gone. Just remember that you are never alone. You are never alone. Just reach into your heart and Allah is always there. You are never alone. Through sorrow and through grief, through happiness and peace. You are never alone.